Just how important are trees for trout? The benefits of shading provided by trees along our rivers is growing in importance as hotter summers and subsequent higher water temperatures are making life tough for trout. Sitting in a warm bath might be a treat for you or me, but it's not an ideal treat for trout. Shade is crucial to offset the impacts of warming temperatures on trout. With many parts of the mid to lower sections of trout streams being treeless, planting trees along rivers is required to get more shade and lower the water temperature to help out the fish. This message has been heard, and there has been a lot of tree planting along streams for this purpose. Anglers are leading the charge in this, and groups like the Australian Trout Foundation are prominent in getting trees into the ground. As good as shading is for trout, there are more strings to a tree's bow than just shade. Part of the formula for good trout fishing is the environmental condition of the stream, and that's what tree planting is addressing through shade. But the other part of the trout fishery equation is food. Trout can't grow if they don't eat, but they can't just pop out of the stream and head down to the shops to get something to eat. The trout population in a stream is dependent on what gets into the water. Early studies on trout food and a common belief among fishers is that the majority of a trout's food is aquatic, that is, animals that live in the water. This includes things like yabbies and shrimp, water snails, other fish, and hugely important is the aquatic larvae of many insects. Some scientific reports had aquatic food at 90% of a trout's diet. There have been many books published on trout food and fishing, describing methods, techniques, and how to tie the artificial flies to mimic the aquatic food. While most of the books mainly focus on the aquatic, it is sometimes forgotten how important terrestrial food is for trout. That is, animals living on land as opposed to living in the water. The Japanese ecologist Shigeru Nakano wanted to know if terrestrials were important and set about conducting an experiment to see what would happen if he excluded them from the stream. To do this, he set up a wall to act as a barricade and keep the terrestrials out. His wall allowed light to get through, but completely covered the stream. He then studied what happened. It turned out terrestrials are extremely important to a trout's diet. With no input from terrestrial bugs, the trout overfed on the larvae of the aquatic insects that fed on the algae. As the number of bugs fell, the algae was not getting grazed and grew out of control. The whole food web changed, and with this change, so did the trout. The trout got smaller and there were less of them. Clearly, breaking the links between terrestrial and aquatic is a big deal to trout. And from an angling point of view, less fish and smaller fish is not ideal. So terrestrial food is very important. And what it may lack in numbers in the stomachs of trout, it makes up for because it is generally larger and provides a lot more energy and is a major component to maintain trout. A single grasshopper takes the place of many small insect larvae. So what has this got to do with trees? The benefits of shade to trout are well known, but the benefits of trees to trout food should not be forgotten. Increasing trees and vegetation along riverbanks can help sustain numbers and sizes of trout. The variety of terrestrial insects like beetles and ants and moths and spiders all rely on various plants. So the greater variety of plants along the river, the more life it can sustain, and therefore the more likely that some of these will fall into the river with benefit to the trout. So there is far more to trees than just shade. Protecting, enhancing and restoring streamside vegetation with a diverse range of plants not only provides shade, but helps make fat trout. And that's another reason to get on board and plant some trees.